Okay guys, so since I recorded that intro, it's probably been like a month. Every time we've gone out to fly this thing, the weather was just not right. So we finally have a pretty nice day. There's absolutely zero wind and pun intended. So I'm pretty ready to fly this thing. Everything's working. As you can see, I have my aileron, elevator, and my rudder. And here's my throttle. So I'm actually gonna have my friend Joaquin launch this for me, just for the maiden flight. We'll see how it turns out. So I'll let you know when. Yep. Okay. So tail heavy is an understatement. Maximum trim, still tail heavy. But look, it's flying. I've waited so long. It needs nose weight. Oh, I can't believe this thing is finally flying. And it flies pretty good. Wow. It's just incredibly tail heavy. Like incredibly tail heavy. It has pretty good power. I think my prop is maybe a little bit out of balance. She is so tail heavy. Okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna land it and reset my elevator output. Okay. All right, so I tilted my elevator down a little more. So let's get this thing back in the air. There you go. All right. Just launch it again, make sure everything's still working. All right. You're good. Okay. Much better. Now I think it's actually nose heavy. Or not nose heavy, the elevator's pointed too much down. Okay, wow, look at the difference that is made. Holy moly. It's flying straight now. Haha. Wow, that thing flies so well. The loops, this thing loops really well. Now its roll rate is kind of abysmal, as you can see. But this thing flies pretty good. I'm so happy that this thing actually flies. Okay, this is kind of funny, but my battery might be shifting midair because every time I do like an aerobatic maneuver, it's either pitching up or pitching down, so. Some inverted flight. Oh, yep, there goes the elevator. You can see. There might be some slop in the elevator. I think if I push it too much in either direction, it doesn't go back to center or true center. I'll have to check it out. So I think for my next flight, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put nose weight, of course, but also I might need to reduce my rates or put some expo on this thing because the elevator is super responsive. But honestly, with everything tuned out, I can see this being an excellent plane. It's already flying really straight. It's beautiful in the air. I mean, look at that. It's very straight. So now I just need my elevator working properly. But look at how well it loops. It tracks incredibly well. Okay, go in for another loop. I don't think I've had a better looping plane. Like, this thing loops so well. I'm gonna do another one across the runway right now. That's ridiculous. One more loop. That might be the best flying characteristic out of this plane right now. Its roll rate is so bad. It's like scale roll rate. No, but the zero was pretty maneuverable. All right, I think I'm gonna go in for a landing. The good thing is, I accidentally put ESC braking on this thing, so it's very easy to land because it's so freaking slow. All right. All right, so that was my maiden flight on my Thunder Tiger Zero, and honestly, that thing flew very well. It of course was incredibly tail heavy, and I had to land it and get my elevator pointed down a little bit just to be able to fly her. But I can see how this thing can be a very nice airframe when I get the CG sorted out and I put maybe just a strip of lead on the nose. But this thing honestly is so nice. It flies very straight. I'm surprised how straight it flies with my makeshift rudder that's not center, but it flies very well. The roll rate is a little sad. The roll rate very slow. However, it produces a quite nice bit of power, and it tracks incredibly well for some reason. I mean, the loops are so straight and it loops so quickly. So I'm so impressed with it. I'm very happy with it. It looks very nice in the air. It looks a little scuffed when you see it on the ground, but in the air, it looks like a very nice Zero. So, you know, as old as it is, it flies so nice, and it's definitely not heavy in the air at all. I think when I go to lower throttles, it definitely needs more throttle to be able to fly, because I think that's with my ESC braking, because you can see here, it just stopped, so I can't lower the throttle completely. But other than that, it's a fantastic flying airplane, and for the price we got it at, it was 50 bucks. It's very nice. So that's pretty much it. So thanks for tuning to John's RC. And if you're new to this channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye guys, I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, John here, and welcome back to John's RC. And today we are here with quite an interesting airplane. This is the Thunder Tiger A6M5C. Now, this has been discontinued for quite a while. Thunder Tiger's a pretty old name in the RC hobby, and they mainly did helicopters, but they also did airplanes. And I literally learned that when I picked this up. We got this from our local hobby shop for a very nice price of $50. It came as a kit, and the kits, they call it the OBL version, and what that means is it comes with a brushless motor that fits the setup perfectly. So it does come as a kit. It's similar to GWS construction if you've ever built a GWS airplane before. So everything came unassembled. The fuselage came in two halves that we had to glue together. And even though there was like quite a bit of steps to the assembly or the build process, it was very straightforward and not difficult whatsoever. So you start off by gluing in the two fuselage halves, and that's kind of held in by the motor mount, and I'll show you all of what I'm talking about in a minute. But the fuselage is kind of like held together by the motor mount in front. That's kind of, it calls for epoxy for all of the assembly portion of the bit, or the glue portion of the builds. However, I just use foam tack and medium CA. I use medium CA for the wooden pieces, and I used foam tack for the foam pieces. So you had to glue in the two fuselage halves, and then you glue in the tail, and you can see here you glue in the horizontal stabilizer first. This horizontal stabilizer is actually a separate piece from the vertical stabilizer, and you glue in the horizontal stabilizer and then you do the vertical stabilizer. But I held off on doing the vertical stabilizer for a little bit because actually the builds actually wanted this as a 3-channel airplane, meaning no rudder. However, I do want a rudder, so I decided to botch up a cut here, and it would have looked nice. However, I pulled the tape off, and this is quite an old plane and the paint is very, very brittle. So as soon as I pulled that tape off, all of the paint went with it. So it was tough, but it's okay. It functions as a hinge and it works perfectly fine. And I can show you the way I have my servos mounted, and you can see that's kind of just in the back right there. Those are the two servos, and if you wanted it as a 3-channel setup, you can see that middle portion of the servo tray is just, that's where your servo is supposed to go. However, on that servo tray there was these 2 extra holes, and I decided to go the lazy way, and I just put in the 2 servos in those little holes. So you can see I put the servos anywhere but where the servo was actually supposed to be. For my electronics, I have this multiplex 30 amp ESC that I got from my Fun Cub. I just had that laying around. And for the motor, it's the motor that came with the plane. However, I don't really know any specifications on it, but you can kind of see it in the front right there. I think the most difficult, it wasn't really difficult, but the most time-taking or time-consuming part of the build process was the plastic parts. So all of the plastic parts came as plastic vacuum molded pieces, so you had to cut out everything. So you can see here, all of this was one piece, and I had to like trim out all the holes, and you could see it gets kind of annoying. And I should have sanded it in retrospect. However, it just takes so freaking long. I had to cut out this part too. So, and then the canopy, you have the canopy, and you had to trim out the canopy from like the vacuum part, and then same for here, and the spinner too. You had to cut out the base of the vacuum parts, and then you had to cut out the individual holes for the blades. So it did take quite a while, and I was gonna use an X-Acto knife. However, it just took so long. I spent like an hour just doing one half of the canopy, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go in with scissors. I don't care at this point. So yeah, you know what? It works. And for the canopy, you can see it has these like green panel lines, and it's quite funny, but all of these green panel lines that you see come as individual stickers, and in the sticker, they're not decals, they're stickers, and in the sticker pack that you get for this airplane, you just see these really long strips, and they don't give you any key of where it goes. So I looked at it, and I just stared at the canopy for like 30 minutes, and I was just trying to imagine where everything goes. And some of them didn't really line up right. I think I missed I misplaced some of them, but they get covered up by this big strip anyway. I think the most annoying part of the build is this is quite old technology, and how they want you to install the battery is by removing the wing every single time you want to fly again. So you can see here, this is where the wing screws in, and then this is where the battery goes. And when I first approached the manual, I was like, okay, I can probably find out a way or figure out a way to make this canopy come out. And that's when I cut this hole, and I was like, okay, I'll just make this plastic canopy magnetic, and then I can shove the battery through here. But my batteries are too thick for the hole, so now I just have a hole in my canopy. But you can see here, this little hole here is for a switch, like how those nitro planes do it. So it's like an ESC switch or receiver switch. So you can see it's quite old technology that we're seeing here. But I'm just going to go the really tedious way. So I do have to unscrew the wing every single time I want to fly. It's quite unfortunate, but it is what it is. Now this is the battery that I'm using for the plane. It's a CNHL 3-cell 1500 mAh battery pack, and it sits right here. There is supposed to be a battery strap, but my battery is too big for it. So it goes in just like that. It's quite a chunky battery. However, where the CG is, it kind of fits perfectly. The older electronics that they used for this build in the 2000s were quite heavy, so that's where the CG sat even with a smaller battery. But now we're using more modern technology. Our ESCs are smaller now, and I don't have an ESC switch, so my CG is still a little aft, but it'll work. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I have to mention. So let's go and fly it.